of the many women who was using their primary care physician to do my well woman exams, and they were always fine.
They're fine until they're not. And again,
right. No, but my tests were fine, so I didn't wind up there.
Family medicine and internal medicine. And some of them are really great at doing those annuals, doing your pap, ordering your mammogram. That's fine. But once you start to have a problem, not an observation, but a problem, then I think that then you should be directed to a women's healthcare specialist who can put all those things together for you.
Yeah, and I eventually did get there, but the one I got directed to had a waiting list and didn't take my insurance, and he did save my life, and I'm happy there, but the amount of time and money that I spent on this process.
So if we could educate women not to go down all these detours, right? To be a little bit more directed and getting help, then I think that would be helpful.
Right. Yeah, and I also think by starting with the women's health specialist and OBGYN, it doesn't mean that you can't also supplement that traditional care with functional care, with teas, with acupuncture, because a lot of those things can relieve symptoms, but to have that North Star that can help you direct and understand why and how all these things are connected. I think you're like a navigator as an OBGYN, and I think you're not really thought of that way. I think typically women think of their OBGYN as an OB to have a baby, or that's what we hear from a lot of the women who come to Genève, and then kind of that's it. And so I just think that's a really important point around where women start in their journey versus having all this trial and error, and experience, time and money before you actually get to someone who could explain things to you.
I'll make one little point along those lines of OB and GYN, and I did both for a lot of years. And most of us do OB and GYN, at least for part of our careers, if not all of it. And having done OB, I know that when you're doing OB, the practice of that takes up a lot of time and energy, and a lot of that is unpredictable, and babies are coming in. And so your energy and your focus may be on that OB portion of your practice, with a little bit less of that to go around to your GYN patients and your menopause patients. And seeing someone who only does GYN and doesn't have the OB part in their practice might be an option for some women. Again, I do not want to disrespect my very good dear friends and colleagues who do both. But if you see an OBGYN and you're finding perhaps not getting quite the attention or the time dedicated to what you need, it might be an idea to seek someone who just does GYN.
I was wondering that. I'm sorry. I was wondering that because I realize that a lot of doctors in general, not to, but this is my experience, they don't like to spend a lot of time with you anyway, regardless of what their actual practice is. It's not that
they don't like to. They would love to, in general. We would love to. But in order to pay the rent and pay the staff and actually pay ourselves, you have to see a certain number per day, and that means a certain amount of time per patient. Most physicians would love to have a half an hour appointment with you. But it's just not realistic.
Here's my only problem with that. I think that there are some who can have 15 people in a day and they should be fine. But if you're trying to do 35 people in a day, then you're being excessive and you're actually doing disservice to the people who are coming in. Because why would I have to sit for an hour and a half, which literally just happened to me. And then I saw you for 10 minutes and you didn't build me the X amount of dollars, which is partly the reason why people, I'm sure, choose not to go to the doctor.
And then you have to spend a half a day to go and sit and wait 10 minutes.
More than the time that I actually visit with you. And then what happens is, and I found this to be, when the doctor came in, I'm trying to tell you all the things that I can try to remember. Memory loss is part of the issue.
Write it down.
So then I write it down, and then I'm trying to do this, and the doctor is looking like, okay, next. I'm hearing you, but I gotta, can you wrap it up? I have 5 minutes with you. And then you go, okay. And then, of course, if you ask a question, they have to go on a tangent to talk about the question, but then you don't come back to answer all the other 4 or 5 questions you have. So what am I supposed to do? That's where you go, again, back to, I didn't have insurance at one point. So now why do I need to pay you?
Right.
If I have to go do the work anyway, let my aunt give me the book on natural remedies. I'll read through the natural and try to figure it out. And then only because it became so miserable was sweating that I said, okay, because I did not want to take hormones. I was told they're not good for you.
There's been a lot of misinformation about the dangers of hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, my primary care colleagues all heard about the Women's Health Initiative back in the early 2000s. And
That's what created the myths and the fear around it.
But they didn't have time or inclination necessarily to keep up with the latest. It's hard enough to keep up with the latest in your own specialty. Yeah. And so that all the headlines and all the journal articles, HRT is bad, estrogen's going to kill you. They all took that to heart, and then they took women off of it stat abruptly. They refused to prescribe it in the future, and so there's a holdover to that. A lot of my primary care colleagues won't go near it.
Mine put me on antidepressants instead, and that's what happens to a ton of women.